eri tā tangata, he Māori reo, he Māori ora, he Māori ora e.
Reti Hedley no Ngāti Tūwharetoa is an established musician, composer and audio producer. Mentored by his late mother Rangiiria Hedley, a renowned Taonga Puoro artist and lecturer, Reti inherited her knowledge of Taonga Puoro. Reti has progressed this precious knowledge further with a degree at WINTEC, which he now incorporates into his life and his band Ia, helping to open up a space for Māori musicians to make both Taonga Puoro and Te Reo Māori more accessible to the public. Whakarongo mai rā.
Nau mai kia hau manu e.
E mihana kia koe kei te tungane. Reti Hedley, thank you for joining us today to kōrero, whakawhiti kōrero, whakawhiti whakaro, I raro I te kaupapa, I te korowai, I te maru o tēnei mea te taonga Puoro. E mihi ana ki a koe. Would you like to start us off with a karakia?
Ai. Ka tika me tīmata I runga I te tika me te pono, no reira e taku tuahine, e te hunga mātakitaki, e te tuakana Morgan, tēnā, tuohu pane, kapikaru, me takutaku ai tātou. E pare e titoko ana tātou ki ngā whangawhanga. Tukuna ai tātou ki ngā rangi, ki ngā tū motu, ki tua o te awe māpara, a hoki mai atu ki a mātou te tangata, te awe kiko, I te ao nei. Nā mō whiti whakamaua ki a tina, haumie, huie, tāiki e.
Tēnā koe, te tungane mau I wāwahi, I hono, tūhono, I kauwairunga ki a kauwairaro o tira, I hono I a tātou ki a tātou, I te hunga whakarongo, ki te hunga mātakitaki, ki te hunga everything, e mihi ana. It's so awesome to see you again, tungane. It's been a while.
Pēnā hoki au.
And in and around Te Taonga Puoro, I think, well, probably a year now since we last connected with the Haumanu website release. But tēnā, we've got a few questions to run through. Tēnā whakamohio mai ko wai koe, nohea koe, a bit of background in your life in Taonga Puoro.
Tika tau, kua roa te wā taku tuahine. I remember sharing the stage with you back with the Haumanu whānau. It's a kaupapa that I'm really humbled to be a part of. And it was really, really awesome to share that moment with you and to also cast back to all the mātanga Puoro from days gone by. And to answer your question, who am I? Ko wai a Reti. Well, he uri no ngā pai maunga, he uri no ngā tai toke rau, tai rākau manga. On my mother's side, I'm from Ruapehu. I'm from Tonga. On my father's side, I'm from Tokerau. I'm from Rākau manga. I spent most of my youth growing up under Tongariro. He uri tēnei o Ngāti Turu Mākina, I tipu ai ki ngā reke o Tongariro. On my mother's side, we have a little kohanga reo over there in Tongariro. Ngāti Hikairo ki Tongariro is the hapu there, Ngāti Rākei Poho. And I spent my youth there, grew up in the kohanga reo there over in Pāpakai kohanga reo, which is something that my mother, Rangiiria, helped to set up. And from there, I sent myself over. Well, I didn't. You know, my mātua, ko oku mātua piripono ki o rau ahurea. Māori mai, tauiwi mai, engari ko te taha Māori I koropo pū ki roto I oku mātua. Nō reira I tipu ai au I roto I te kōhanga reo me te kura kaupapa. Ko te kura kaupapa, when I grew up, my primary school was te whakarewa o te reo o Tūwharetoa, which is over there in Taupō, so we had to catch the bus every morning from Tūrangi and spent an hour heading on over to our kura kaupapa there. During those times, I had a lot of time spent with my whaia, my mother. And she was living at the time in Rotorua and doing a lot of learning and a lot of rangahau around our Māori, tikanga Māori, te reo Māori. And it was around about this time where I could see there was a thirst for Puoro Māori. You know, I toko ake te pīkoko o ngā Puoro. And that's when I was introduced to my first Puoro.
Tell us about it, Tingane.
Oh, man, it was awesome. I was really, really young. We were over in Rotorua at the time. And I remember going to this little wānanga. I don't remember too many of the faces, but I remember some of the kids who were there. But anyway, that was one of the earliest memories I have of, haututu, of rā weke weke I nei taonga. And the first taonga I got to have actual whawha on was the kūkau, the porotiti actually. No, it was more of a porotiti. Aye. It was then that I was introduced to te ao Puoro.
Can you remember who, alongside your mama, were there?
Aye. There was a kava, and he was a matua from Te Arawa. What you have to remember is at that time, I was about 4 or 5.
Oh, beautiful.
So I was very, 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 very young.
Yeah. And you had the porotiti.
Aye. I can remember learning how to play and how to sing with make the porotiti sing, you know. And I also remember hearing about early kōrero about the porotiti and its connection to vibrations.
Yes.
And its oro being a resonant frequency for hauora.
Kia ora.
You know, and yes, we were learning about Puoro, but at the exact same time, we were learning about pū kōrero as well. You know, because when you learn about Puoro, ka heke hoki mai a pū rākau. And so that was that journey. From there, I was lucky enough to move to Waikato I hunuku ko au kotahi ki te taho toku whaia I haere ia ki te whare wānanga o Waikato hei tauira I kātahi kārua I puta hei kai arahi hei kai ako hei tumu ako mō te whare wānanga o Waikato I roto I tēnei ao o te Puoro.
Yeah.
So it was when we moved to Waikato that my mother had really immersed herself in te ao Puoro, composing, learning, researching, and also teaching.
Playing and making also, yeah?
Correct, yes. And along with composing, along comes playing, you know.
Yeah.
And te ao Puoro was at that time going through a period of renaissance in Aotearoa. Around that time, we're talking early 90s, 92, 93, 94. You know, it was really starting to move and shake, and it was due to all the efforts of all of those greats that this was happening, and that you and I were being exposed to the beautiful voices of hene rauka tauri, rauka taumea, hine te iwa iwa, hine pū te hue. We were very lucky to benefit from that era.
Ama. I mean, you know, that revitalisation in that time helped whakaki i ngā kete, but also to rapu i te mea ngaro. And that mea ngaro is almost normalised today. In terms of Taonga Puoro being brought into our mainstream or dominant stream, as I've learnt. But at the moment, it's popular to be Māori. It's popular to know things about rongoa. It's popular to know Taonga Puoro. And if we think about all those years before, then today, you know, ara te utu o ngā keke o aua tohunga I aua rā, Rangiiria, Hirini mā, Richard mā, and I am really humbled to be a part of our continued whakarauora I tēnei ao o te Taonga Puoro with our uiui that we're sharing at this point in time. E mihi ana ki a koe e te tūngane kua wātea, kua whai wā, I tō ao, busy as probably always, and I'm really excited to share the kōrero of you, Reti Hedley, but to also remember the kōrero of your mama, of Rangiiria. And I only had the privilege of knowing a little part of Rangiiria and the time of Te Ao Taonga Puoro. And I remember distinctly when I was learning Taonga Puoro how intimate she was with her taonga. She carried her taonga around in her containers, and one kakahu needed to cover this particular Taonga Puoro, and this kakahu needed to cover this particular Taonga Puoro, and then the pūtorino had to go in first, and then so all of it, like a little bit of a Tetris, but, you know, if you got it wrong, oh gosh, yeah. But, you know, all of these small learnings, I have developed this immense passion for Taonga Puoro today, and it's all because of your mama and her learnings and her teachings from the whare wānanga Waikato, but, you know, your kōrero that you've just shared about even before that, you know, you as a 4-year-old having access to our taonga, tuku iho, and how cool is it today that we get to enjoy this as an everyday something.
Yes, so true.
Fill in the gaps, Tingane. What has happened since you were 4 and to now in terms of Taonga Puoro? How has it influenced your ara, your life, your journey today?
Pātai nui tērā.
Ama.
You know, because that's a big gap. You know,
because you're really old. No.
yes, because I am reaching pākeketanga. But you know, heading back to your pātai, wow, Taonga Puoro began as an experience. You know, as a young Maori boy, learning and experiencing what Taonga Puoro was in the 90s. And growing up with that, wow, that was attending wānanga, that was being partial to kōrero and Puoro sessions that would just unfold because, you know, you're just around them and you're there whilst other Puoro practitioners are having their wānanga and are playing and practicing together. And so that was most of my life. And it wasn't really until I got to my teenage years till I started picking up a passion for music, you see. And so what ended up happening was Puoro became this background thing in my life. Now, I have to say that at that time, you know, tai tama, tai ohi, a haui, taua wā, my mother was in full swing. Her Puoro was a part of her life in and out. It was ingrained in her DNA at that point. She was a lecturer, she was a performer, she was a composer, she was also heavily involved in conservation, which I think ties in to te ao Puoro, because like I said earlier, and I mentioned this, you know, it went through a renaissance, a resurgence, and you said it quite plainly, you know, I whakarauora e nei mātanga Puoro, I te ao Puoro. These guys, they were rescuing this heritage of ours. And so at that point, okay, that was the centre of Rangiiria Hedley, was to research, was to perform, was to participate in the renaissance of te ao Puoro. And you know, let's be real about it. Let's be real about it. When you grow up with whānau, and your whānau just happens to be your koro, or your mama, or your papa, or your nana, or your karani papa, or whoever it is, to you, that's who they are. Ki ngā hapu, ki ngā iwi, ki ngā marea o te motu, they are much bigger than that. But you don't know that at the time, though. You know? Because you grow up with that world and you become ignorant. You become desensitized to who these people are. Because that's your mama, that's your matua, that's, you know, that's the fire who gives me the growling. That's, you know, those are our whānau. And so it's so interesting to think that as a teenager, all these people around me participating in te whakarauora o ngā reo Puoro, I couldn't grasp how important and how sacred that time was. I was too young. I couldn't grasp it.
We weren't to know that, you know, and I think about times when we're in wānanga, it could be any wānanga, whānau, hapua, iwi rānei, and you know, you're 2 a.m. and you're learning karakia or you're learning whakapapa. Some people fall to sleep and some people stay awake. Some people are present and some people are not. And that's just how it is.
Kia ora.
You know, it's not the time when, you know, when you're off having a moe, it's not your time to learn. And that's okay. And that's okay. And how cool is it that you have all of these memories? As a pakeke, looking back, you can go, that's why I did this, or that's why, you know, and how much aroha we have for all of the learnings and the teachings from our past and from our tohunga. Yeah. I was thinking about kōrero that Rangiiria talked to me about you and Mōkena, your brother, playing, because you love playing guitar, eh? Is that how you got into your music side? Was from the guitar, your passion for music?
It definitely was the vehicle to access Western music. The guitar was a way that I could understand and learn Western musical theory, how tauiwi saw music. And it wasn't my first instrument though. Oh, okay. I actually had loved singing, loved playing the drums, and guitar, just when I started learning it, it seemed so easy to me. And it was really awesome to help me learn music, the theory, the art. Aye.
And you did if I can remember, you went to WINTEC.
Aye.
Put pen to paper.
Put
Meki.
pen to paper.
Yeah. And what was your qualification there?
It was a Bachelor of Media Arts.
Oh, yes. And is that where you learnt more about recording your own content?
I learned the program, I learned the machine, I learned how to do it all. At that age, I had this big machine and I was really, really lucky and I learned how to use it.
Yes.
Because, you know, I aua wā I tipu mai, I pua wai mai te ipurangi. So I had Uncle Google at access even at that age, you know, and learnt all those programs. And so anyway, fast forward to WINTEC. I was only growing that
Initial
skill.
Yeah.
That skill that I already had planted. I tō te kākano ki roto o ngā tau tai ohi, tai tamatanga, I pua wai ki roto I oku tau pakeke, tai pakeke tanga.
Beautiful.
So it was definitely WINTEC that taught me to hone my skills, to develop my ability to produce, to hear the sound, produce the sound, refine the sound, develop the sound, EQing, compression, mastering, mixing, all of that technical stuff. WINTEC helped me hone those skills.
And was that the time you started a band, or had you already been in a band? Tell us about that.
Well, I had been playing in a lot of bands leading up to WINTEC, but by the time I had gotten to WINTEC, I was playing in a band called Knights of the Dub Table, and we had a lot of good fun times over the years. Still managed to catch up with the brothers, and we often tour every summer. And we got together around the same time I was learning those production skills. And so we pulled together a few singles, managed to release some content online, and from there we grew our band. And I've been playing in the same band ever since, and I think we're coming up to about 12 years.
Yeah, it'll be that since I heard Just Because I'm Small. Oh, yes, I was one of those, what do you call them when you go around and you follow a band? What are those called?
Fans.
Yes. No, I was thinking.
A fan.
I wrote, what? Groupie.
A groupie.
Oi, he tino groupie hei.
Tino groupie.
For Nights at the Dub Table. I was, I remember driving your mama and your Auntie Frog around to all the gigs in Hamilton and Waikato. I was an avid supporter of Nights at the Dub Table. And even your when you transitioned through to more of just, I think it was just you, in the next transition before coming into your current status in Te Ao Puoro.
Aye. Through those stages, you know, I picked up a lot of skills and grew a lot as an artist and a musician. Kind of maybe about 5 years ago, there was a point where Te Ao Māori was really making some moves in Aotearoa, where artists like Ria were starting to emerge, like Macy were really starting to emerge as these juggernaut artists. You know, there's a few other names I can think of. There was Mr. Waipara.
Tama,
Ana. Tama Waipara. Taua wiri no te kaha.
Oh, Rob Rua.
Rob, Ana. Called Rob. So you know, at that time there were these emerging juggernauts who we get to benefit from now.
Kia ora.
Hey, bro, straight up.
Ana.
You know, they bless us with all their goodness.
Ka kōrero.
But when I think back to those times, I also remember seeing the influence their music was having on Aotearoa as a big reach. And I think it had a lot to do with ipurangi. You know?
Ana. And I think their status in Te Ao Māori and then cracking it in the mainstream or the dominant stream, just kind of the reach was even further, right?
Aye.
And then hearing Taonga Puoro in and around some of the waiata, and now in your rōpū, I mean, Taonga Puoro is a part of your life and it's normal every day. But to be able to incorporate that in your rōpū waiata, did you want to share a bit more about that specialist reo? I want to call it specialist because ana, ka tika he taonga tuku iho. And to be able to hono the two together is, I feel, amazing.
It really comes down to how, as a musician, I've been able to inherit a lot of these taonga. And now being in a time where I've grown up with, as I was saying before, these juggernauts of musicians who have helped to normalize Te Ao Māori in the music scene, it's opened up a space for more Puoro musicians to be able to compose using our Māori instruments as well as our reo Māori. Because what Rob and his contemporaries have shown is that our reo is accessible to the public, and I'm keen to bring our Puoro into that space.
Kia ora.
And I think what we need to do as Puoro musicians is we need to be able to gather together all of our musical skills and talents, pull them all together, right, as a collective and grow music from there. And so I'm really, really keen on working with a lot of other musicians to be able to collaborate on that level. Because I think that as we collaborate and influence each other, we learn more and more about how to innovate and compose as musicians. And for me, that means Puoro, how to write and compose as a Puoro musician.
Kia ora.
And, you know, I grew up with Puoro and learned about the pūrākau that come with them, learned about the whakapapa that come with the specific voices, and then learned various pūrākau pertaining to various iwi and hapu. And this all enriches your understanding of Puoro, and being able to connect that with musicians, that I'm keen on that.
Yes, 100%.
I'm really, really keen on trying to bring out Puoro as the main instrument within compositions. You know that, right?
Ana. Yeah. Yes, beautiful. I can't wait till it's a normal thing to hear and see and feel in our everyday lives, and not only our Spotify playlist, but in our mainstream, what we're hearing on the radio. How about we specialise in Tonga Puoro and all kind of facets. We're already talking about it now, but do you have any pūrākau or tikanga or atua that is at the forefront of your whakaaro each time you pick up a Taonga Puoro? Or is there like a ritual that you do? Is there an ara that you take when you are thinking about composition and the use of Taonga Puoro? There's our pūrākau, they go, oh yeah, that's right. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing because of this.
Gee, there was like, you packed 3 pātai into one pātai there. That was a big one.
Oh, mō taku he, mō taku pātai. All right, let's go back. Let's re-ask that question. Are there any pūrākau, tikanga atua rānei, that you think about when you're composing?
Well, I know, when I think of pūrākau, Puoro, I'm thinking about ngā ōroko hanga o ngā momo Puoro. Ngā whakapapa e hono ana i ngā Puoro ki ngā tamariki a Rangiiria papa. Ngā uri a ngā atua. Because, we're talking about reo atua, oro atua here. And I had a quick kōrero with a brother a few years back. I wasn't even in Aotearoa. I was somewhere in a jungle somewhere, but I had to have this quick hui with someone about some learnings that I had around oro and its origins. And I remember vividly learning about there's really 3 parts to thinking about oro. There's the space that the oro is going through, and as oro travels, it spreads its Māori as it travels, right? And so there's actually an atua that governs that process. I don't even know the name of the atua. And to my defense, that person couldn't even tell me on that day either. And that person was my mum. So, it's not even my fault. But that was the first one, was the distance. And then the next one, which was given to us through tāwhaki, was the rangi. And this is quite interesting because, we talked earlier, my sis, about how I had grown up learning about the theories of tauiwi, and they talk about in their theories, they have 12 notes.
Right.
On the piano, if you go from C to C, there's 12 notes in between them. And what I find interesting about that is then when we talk about ngā rangi tū ha. Well, there were actually 12. And so that's the same kōrero. So ngā rangi kei roto I ngā oro atua, there's actually 12 rangi tū ha before you get to ngā tihi o manono kia whai atu I ngā kete o te wānanga. Okay, so that I find that there's a really interesting link there between ngā rangi.
They probably learnt it off us, I think.
Oh, bro. Oh, there's a whakapapa there. Hey,
Ana.
That connects us all together.
Kia ora.
And it goes all the way back to the atua. So yes, they did learn it from us. So the first was the distance that oro travels. Then there's the rangi, right? And then the third was the mita.
I feel maybe Tāwhiri might have had strong influence in the carrying of the oro. That te hirangi o Tāwhiri Mātea is the texture, but the weather, the hau and the ha. And if we have, say for example, I use my reo, what's going to carry my reo to your taringa in this point of time? Atu I ngā mics me te ipurangi. We've had a lot of kōrero about aspirations in Taonga Puoro, and I can kind of probably sum up a few of the aspirations. But in o kupu, in your kupu, what are your aspirations for Taonga Puoro in and around the whare, whānau, hapu, iwi?
To be honest, bro, that's an easy one. around whānau hapu iwi, me whāngai I ngā taonga nei, ki ngā pāhekeheketanga. Kia kaua tātou e hari I ngā mātauranga o ngā Puoro ki ngā urupā.
Ana.
Me whāngai ki ngā urupā heke heke. That's more of a whittle than it is an aspiration. Because it's like our reo. We can speak it as awesomely as we want to. You know, we can pursue our reo to its
Ike tanga, kairangi.
Ike, tihi, whakatihinga, you know, and beyond. But unless you're living and breathing it as you're participating in it, then it's going to be really, really hard to sustain it when we are gone. I think it's quite challenging for us as musicians because what we know is tikanga is something that you don't want to whati. And when we think of Puoro, let's just think for one example, the pukaia. Its primary function would be to alert. Te whakaara I te pā. O te whakaara I te opetaua. O te whakaara I te tangata. Te whakamatike I te wairua o te riri hoki. Hey, because the pukaia was definitely an instrument of war. That's the tikanga. Hey, there's a lot of tikanga in that. And I've got a few awesome pukorero, pūrākau, that talk about this.
Tū matakokiri, ne?
Aye. But when we use a pukaia today, we actually whati that tikanga every time we use it. So our challenge as Puoro artists is how do we maintain and preserve without losing the essence? Because I am a musician who wants to modernize, who wants to innovate, who wants to find the next frontier, just like Kupe. He wanted to find the next frontier and he found Aotearoa, you know. But what do you reckon? Like, you know, these are my whakaaro. Here's my pātai to you. How can we as musicians push the boundaries to the next level with our Puoro while maintaining the essence? Is it possible?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Ki te whakakotahi o tāua, o tira I tō o tātai whakaaro, the more we talk about it, the more we play it, the more we use it, use our taonga Puoro correctly, the more we're going to learn. And I think if we, you know, our parents are more colonised than us and their parents are more colonised than them, and the more tika that we are teaching our kids, the less colonised, you know, the more decolonised they are, and the more we are growing our Māori, whether that be our reo, our taonga tukuiho, our taharongoa, and our taonga Puoro. You know, I have two children, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the 4-year-old knows hine pū te hue, because we're growing hue at the moment, you know, so we're actually kei te whakatinana I ngā āhuatanga, ngā tikanga, o te ao, o te taonga Puoro. And he knows 4 instruments, at least 4 instruments that are made from hine pū te hue. And my daughter will go up to our taonga shelf and she'll pick up the kōauau or pick out the ponga ihu and play it. She puts it to her nose because she knows that's how you play it. And even though kare I te whakatangi au a Puoro, kei te rongo I te māramatanga. And so she will go, woo, with her mouth, imitating. And, you know, just like your mum did with you, she normalised taonga Puoro. And the more we have advocates for our beautiful taonga, I think that the further the reach, you talked about the reach, and when we have it with this essence or this passion or this intimate knowing of Taonga, of our Taonga Puoro, it's only ever gonna grow.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
I agree.
And your mahi in around ia and the trailblazing that you're doing with Taonga Puoro, being at the forefront as the first reo and the main reo of mainstream Puoro, you're doing exactly that, giving it to the wider ao Puoro and the wider listener to then be a normal thing to hear in their homes. So you're doing it already, Tungane. Hey.
Yeah. Aye. Having a go at it anyways.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, hearing your waiata from Weherua to Whetu, Pūmo, like all of your waiata. I can feel Puoro being at the top, at the tihi o te maunga. It's, it's not just the background reo that we're used to hearing. So e mihi ana ki a koe, e te tūngane, because of all the mahi that you're doing, it's only ever going to be better for our uri whakatupu. So thank you. Hei whakakapi pia i nei kōrero a tāua. Do you have any final kōrero or final tips for our listeners?
Well, to all the whānau who know nothing about Puoro and would love to get involved, go hard. Your first challenge is to connect, to whakawhanaunga ki ngā tangata e mōhio te hunga matatau ki ngā Puoro. So make those connections to people who are in the know.
Kia ora.
Then there's also our musical whānau. There's plenty of us. Hey, that's you too, Libby. You're a musical lady yourself. To all our musical whānau, explore your musical heritage.
Kia ora.
Yes, your mō are beautiful. Yes, your poi are beautiful. Yes, your haka are amazing to behold. But, your tupuna had instruments as well. So there's the second one. There's the whittle to our musical whānau. And then the last one to all of us participants of Puoro, those of us who are performing, composing, and creating. Now, see, that's the thing. And then that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily learn about Te ao Puoro, is the art of creating Puoro. So to all of us, practitioners of Puoro, kia maia, kia horo ki e nei taonga, tāwhia ki te ao, hei hua mō tātou katoa.
Ana.
That's my final message.
Kia ora. Ka mātua i tēnā. Tēnā anō koe kei te tungane mō i noho pū ki tēnei kaupapa o te ao Puoro. I said earlier, and I'm still going to say it, stand by it today, right now, at this point in time, he hooking a mahara. And I am humbled to be having our whakawhiti whakaaro, whakawhiti kōrero with you tonight, today at this time, tungane, e mihi ana. That concludes our kōrero. Nāui anō i tūwhera i tēnei kaupapa, ka waiho ki a koe, e tehi kupu whakakapi.
Tēnā koe ai te tuahini, e te hunga mā takitaki, tāna atu ki a koe Morgan, a tēnā tātou katoa. Me noi tātou i tō matua. Ana i tātou e tū ohu nei mui a koe tēnei pō. Tēnei pō a whakapipi i a tātou i tēnei rangi. A unua i ngā māhere-here i ngā pō rewa-rewa i ngā pō hewa-hewa ki a mātou tēnei rangi. Kia kaua e tau kume-kumetia e tau patu-patu ki waenga i a tātou katoa. Kōrero waitia i a tātou i tō aroha i tō manaakitanga mo ake tonu atu ki a koe te kahame te korori a tonu atu ki ngā naira pono A te matua te tama me te wairua tapu. Ai nei ake nei. Ai. Āmeni.
Ai, kia ora.
Sis.
Ko te piko te mahuri, ko ia te tipu a te rākaui. He rita tangata, he Māori reo, he Māori.